to call this City of Kyle Planning and Zoning Commission Workshop meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Scheibmeier, Harold,
Here.
McCall,
Here.
Christie,
Here.
Gara,
Here.
Voss, James.
Here.
Citizens' comments. Members of the public that wish to provide a citizen's comment can submit online, or they could be on the phone right now. Deb, do you have anybody on the line who wishes to speak?
No.
No?
No.
Seeing no one here for citizens' comments, I will close citizens' comments. Presentation, Kyle Estates West. Okay, who's up?
So just a brief introduction. We have Mr. Mark Baker with us tonight. I believe he is going to make a presentation to P&Z to just take the temperature and get some feedback on some ideas that they have for some development that's going to happen on the east side. Not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to go ahead and let him present it to you and be able to get from you if he has any questions or comments. So Mark, you can go right ahead, and you should be able to share your screen if you have some backup information that they want to see.
Very good. I'll try it here. All right. Is everybody able to see a slide that says Kyle Estates West February 24 workshop?
Yes.
Yes.
So guys, I'm with SEC Planning. We do land planning, landscape architecture, and I'm here representing D.R. Horton this evening, who is working with the Walton Development Group on the Kyle Estates West. That if you dig back into your memory banks a little bit, it might have been 2019 you last saw this, if my recollection is right. And so I've been brought on to help evaluate this property and look at the land plan a little bit and kind of try to study how we might be able to adjust it for today's times and what D.R. Horton would like to do. And so I wanted to go back through this presentation. We want to get your feedback on where the current zoning stands, make a proposal for what we would like to tweak it to be, and then get your feedback and direction on if you think we're headed in the right direction and next steps. But we wanted to get involved early on in the process with the Planning Commission to get your feedback and go over kind of a history lesson of and dust off the cobwebs of where this project is located and some of the history behind it. So there should be an aerial on your screen that says Kyle Estates West. I think y'all are familiar with the area, but Bunton Lane borders the northeastern side. Casetta Ranch that you're very familiar with, I'm sure, is this tract right here that also fronts Bunton. So Goforth comes through into Casetta, and then you have Lehman Road to the west, Lehman High School, and then Plum Creek borders the southern part. And so I want to walk through what the existing zoning is on the property. There's a mix of different product types currently. So these are the zoning boundaries as they stand today. I believe these were crafted based on a detailed lotting plan that was done a couple years ago, is how these were crafted. So you have a retail parcel up on Bunton Lane. You have an R1T, which is townhomes behind the retail. And then you have an R1A, which is like an alley loaded small lot product. There was a portion that was R31, which is like a medium density multifamily, 12 unit per acre max product. Then you have the R12 is the pink color. That's like 60-foot lots. And then R11 is the blue. That is the largest lot. I think they're like 80s. And so those boundaries were set before my time, obviously. And I think what happened is if a few more constraints came into play after this was done, some additional easements that cut through the property that changed the configuration of streets. Some more refinement of the Caseta Ranch land plan impacted where different connections occurred to this property. And all those minor modifications led to the applicant requesting some tweaks to this a couple years ago. And so this is kind of an aerial overview where you can see the Caseta Ranch in yellow line work. And then you can see some of the easements that cut through this property. And then there's a good deal of floodplain down on the southern portion of the tract. So there's a lot of connection points to adjacent development from the existing neighborhoods on the east to the neighborhoods in Caseta that sort of tweak how the land plan wants to go. And so we came in and took a fresh look at it to see how we might be able to craft a plan that works a little bit better with these current conditions. And then we also went back and listened to some of the council feedback from 2019. And some of those comments that we heard from council, or the applicant heard from council back then, were understand a more thoughtful land plan. The mayor wanted a little bit more thought on how different zoning categories related to each other and how the larger picture of connectivity and transportation work, how the impacts to Bunton Lane, how Bunton Lane would be impacted by more development, and ensure that there's a higher quality of development standards and complying with the style guide that the city has. And then a lot more emphasis was mentioned by several council members on how we handle the riparian corridor from a trail standpoint and accessibility standpoint for park and open space. And so I took all those things into account when I was looking at taking a fresh look at the overall land plan. And so we have a proposal here that is a modification to that original plan. And I just want to go through some of the highlights just so you kind of hear my thought process on why I shifted things the way that I did. And one of the main new things about this plan is D.R. Horton wanted to have a specific entry into their project from Bunton Lane. So we added a separate entry from Bunton Lane that then splits the retail service tracks into two separate tracks. And then that main collector road comes through and tees into what we believe will be an amenity center site and a park. And I've located this park around some existing trees that are on the site to save those in an open space. And then what I traditionally see are a transition of land uses from heavier intensity to less intensity. And so one of the things that was a little strange to me on the previous zoning was they had the multifamily or 12 unit to the acre stuff over in the corner next to single family. So I was proposing to move it up as a transitional use behind the retail. So it steps down from Bunton Lane from retail to the multifamily. And then this orange color would be the townhomes. So as you progressively get away from Bunton Lane, it gets less dense. And so I have retail, the multifamily, the townhomes, and then this cream color would be the R12, which are the like 65-foot lots. And then if you know the land plan for Caseta Ranch, Go Forth, there's a traffic circle that's being built at Bunton Lane and Go Forth. And the product that is on Go Forth is an alley loaded product. So those homes will face on to Go Forth without any driveways. There'll be street tree program that comes through Go Forth. So my thought was to try to continue that same pattern of development through the Kyle Estates West tract. And so all of this block of cream color that you see on the west side of the easements is what I'm calling the R1A, which is the alley loaded product. So you'd have the same homes facing, alley loaded homes facing on to Go Forth as it comes through Kyle Estates West. And then we've also adjusted the alignment of Go Forth after visiting with staff and trying to understand a larger thoroughfare network. we've slid Go Forth over as it comes out and stubs the southern part of this property so that it could easier extend to the south to 150 in the future. I'll show you a context map here in a second. And then some other thoughts where we kept larger product down along the floodplain. So you have the R11 and the R12 still concentrated down along the Plum Creek corridor. And then one of the other things that's from a compatibility standpoint is I was looking at what was going on around the property. And Caseta has the alley-loaded product, but then around their perimeter, they have front-loaded product. And so that's why you see this strip of R12. So my thought is we could back up like product to each other. So you would have front-loaded product backing up to front-loaded product. So from a compatibility standpoint, you'd have like product around the perimeter. Same thing with the product on the east side. We would have very similar product backing up to the existing homes that exist there today from a transitional standpoint. And then from a bigger picture, this is just a zoomed out view showing what I was describing about Go Forth, why we swung it over the way we did, is that there is a road, I believe it's called Creekside. Am I getting that right? I think it's Creekside, that connects to 150. And so you can see this yellow dashed line is where the crossing for Go Forth, if you wanted to make that connection in the future, could very easily be able to connect through and tie into that street, providing another reliever for development in the area. And then we also have Lynn Drive and Gristmill that we're showing as extending all the way through to Lehman Drive. And so those different roadway extensions and stubs to the adjacent development start to define blocks of land. And those roadways are what I use to try to define distinct areas for these different zoning categories. So it's maybe a little less random than the way it was before. So you have entire blocks of land contained within these road extensions as your zoning parameters. And so that was my thought process with that. And then obviously Go Forth continues to the north and hits another connector that goes over, I think it's BB Road that it hits, then connects over to I-35 as well. So this network, I believe starts to open up different avenues and possibilities for distributing traffic long-term from a big picture standpoint. And so then we took that, and just to give you an idea of, the thought process, we did just a little quick layout just so you'd have an idea of how this street network might work. So you can see here along Go Forth, like I mentioned, you'd have alley load product that faces onto Go Forth. I'm actually trying to do some different type of elements where you have paseo lots where you have an alley loaded product and then the home faces onto open space, like a park system. And then those open spaces would then tie into a trail system in the central easement as well. So you have a series of open spaces along Go Forth that I think will add a unique character to the look and feel of that road and just a unique product as well. And you can see again the R13 or R31 behind the retail. And then you can see our park system trying to locate a park central to this entire neighborhood here. So everybody has easy walkability access to the parks. And then I wanted to try to get good access from all the neighborhoods through this central spine of open space that we have to get down to Plum Creek Trail system that we could implement that would be more like a regional trail that would parallel Plum Creek. And I did an enlargement here just to try to highlight that. The yellow lines are what I'm alluding to as being a regional trail. And then that would tie up through a trail that comes up through the easement open space and then ties into each of the neighborhoods. And then we also have another park that's along Lynn Drive that would back up to an existing pond that's on the property. So it would make that feel like a larger park as well. And then there's an open-ended cul-de-sac at the end of Violet Lane to to our northeast that provides an opportunity for us to do a connection into that adjacent neighborhood as well. And so those are some of the things we're thinking about, how to take better advantage of that riparian area for an amenity, not only for this project, but for the surrounding neighborhoods as well, and for future development. And then lastly, what I did is a comparison summary between what the existing current zoning is versus what the proposal is that we're making. And so you see on the left, the existing zoning acreage, and then our proposed zoning acreage. And you see a delta over here on the far right. And so basically what we have is less acreage in every category. And the delta is basically the open space. I was trying to be transparent and show what's actually open space versus land use category, so it's not confusing that there's not any open space. So the difference is this 102 acres of open space was kind of distributed amongst all these categories previously. But I think that tells a story as to how that's a pretty high percentage of open space over this entire project. So I think it will be a pretty nice amenitized development with the amount of open space and trails that can be implemented within it. So in a nutshell, that's my summary. What we really would like to do is get your feedback and open a dialogue with you, that if you think what we're presenting here makes some sense for moving forward. Obviously, we think it does, and we think it will make for a more thoughtful, well-planned community, and would like to advance with something like this. But worst case, we would go in and take the existing zoning and try to lay in a land plan and work within those boundaries. We just don't think that would be the most efficient or effective, beneficial way to do it for the city or for the developer. So we're hoping we can find some common ground and work together to move this plan forward for the Horton folks. So I'll shut up for a little bit, and I'm here with Adib from DR Horton, Adib Corey, and also Chris Rawls with BGE Engineers. And there's several other folks. I think Mike and John from DR Horton are here with us this evening too. So we just want to hear your feedback and answer any questions you might have and start a dialogue with you.
Well, thank you for that presentation. That was very well done. For myself, I'm liking the way the streets interact with the other neighborhoods, the Casetta Ranch and the other neighborhoods that are already there. I like how you made that come through, and I also like the high density near the right behind the retail, and then you come back and spread out. I do like that. But I like the streets. I like how it flows through and gives you other avenues to come into and leave the development. So traffic isn't just funneled into one means of egress when you're getting out of there. I do like that. Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I comparing the two, the old plan versus the new one, I definitely do agree with a lot of these changes they've made. I think the way they've moved the higher density is smart. I think the trail system works well. I think that you really, no matter what, the traffic is going to be an issue, but this is using what they have, I think, to the best of their ability. So as for me, I do support the changes they've suggested.
Yeah, I really like it. Thank you, Guerra. Anyone else?
From my perspective, just from the regulator, I liked the schedule of the zoning. And I like the fact that they're able to keep a mix of housing types. I think Kyle really should probably keep an eye on our mix, our housing mix. We should probably watch out for things like homogeny of product type, because if any one product type loses favor in the market and you're over invested in that product type, you can create unique challenges for yourself with underperforming properties. So maintaining that balance is important. And the balance of product type is probably paramount versus actual density, because we can accommodate the density through the roadway network and the availability of water, wastewater. So that's important. I'd like maybe Will to weigh in a little bit if he knows off the top of his head the land use district and our cheat sheet for what the expectation is for what's recommended unconditionally versus what's recommended conditionally versus what's not recommended on this area, and see how that mix has been either maintained or maybe improved.
Sure. Thank you, Howard. Mr. Baker, can you go back to the zoning land plan for me?
The existing zoning, Will? Is that the one you want?
Actually, let's go to the proposed. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so let me look at the land use district cheat sheet real quick. And most of this is in the East Settlement District, where R11 and R12 are recommended. So the R11 districts, R12, they're certainly fine in there. No issue supporting those.
There's a little bit of riparian. Am I right about that?
You are correct, Howard. Riparian at the bottom.
Mhm.
Let me pull it up. Recommended is urban estate or agriculture, but conditionally you can have R11. So I'm not sure if it just kind of depends on where that riparian district falls within compared to the southern boundaries of the property as it currently stands, and how those interact, whether R11 or R12 would be appropriate or not. But certainly single family development against the creek is better than the higher density. The other aspect of it, while it certainly makes sense from a leveling up and an intensity up to the commercial standpoint, so you have your R12, your R1T, which are townhomes, and R31, and then commercial. I think we all understand the rising of the incline towards density and types of land uses, but the R31 district is not considered at all in this part of the city. So that's something that would need to be discussed further to take that into account. As it currently stands, the R31's there and with the current zoning, and so if they wanted to preserve that, they can. But I'm also on the same page. I think it's kind of strange that it's in the northwest corner, I think is where it currently is. So that's going to require further discussion. Oh, the north corner. Thank you. Where the R1T is shown on the existing zone is where the R31 is supposed to be shown.
Right.
So if you attempt to move it, there's a chance that you may not be able to get it back. But from a logic standpoint, it makes sense that they're ramping up in intensity to the commercial.
Yeah, I think arguably the use they're proposing makes more sense.
Right, I agree.
Think the higher density, the higher intensity stuff closer to the activity center. I mean, that's just sensible.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes our comp plan and sensibility don't always intertwine perfectly. But I think they have a lot of parkland, certainly, green space, if you will. I know to some extent there's already been some dedication along the southern boundary for Plum Creek. So they have a lot. I don't, obviously it's just a glance. I don't know if they have enough or not, but they have a lot. It's about a third of their property, if my math is correct.
Right.
Chances are they have enough.
Mr. Baker, I've got a question for you on the transportation network. Your neighbor to the south here is developing a property that is right across the creek from you. And a portion of their development, just east of that dotted yellow line, that property is it's on a drawing board somewhere in Central Texas, and it'll be coming to us soon, I believe, in 2021. Have your interests made any expectations or plans for the continuation of that road, specifically related to the bridge, or is it an unknown at this point? Is it an expectation that you wanted to partner with the city? Not really sure what the city's plan is for that capital improvement project of the bridge crossing the Plum Creek along Creekside Drive.
Yeah, I think our expectation was to deliver the road to the property extent so that the city, if they so desired to extend that in the future, it would be set up to be able to do that. I don't think this development was entertaining building a bridge or making that connection across property we don't control at this point.
Got it. Anybody else, commissioners, have any questions?
Anyone, speak up now.
Or any direction for the applicant coming forward with relationship to really anything?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Will brought up a good point with being right there on, on the south part. I would like to see more R11 there. I think with that yellow area that is R12 right now on this proposed map, I think being right, yes, that. I mean, personally speaking, I can't speak for everybody, but I would feel more comfortable if that was even lower density than R12. If it was R11, is probably what I would suggest, especially given I'm not positive which if that's the riparian or not, but if it is, it should be R11.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to echo what Alex said there, because it seems like as we're decreasing density for the road, it would make sense to go down to R11 at that point in time. And I don't know what's the plant of the subdivision underneath this or to the south of this, if it kind of like comes back up to R12, but I think like it would make sense if we're designing from the street to go down in density to continue that decrease.
So it's a very interesting planning idea, the crossing and Creekside Trail. Currently, the only way to get across the Plum Creek and Kyle, moving, for lack of a better term, north and south, is Lehman Road or Heidenreich. That's the only way you're going to get from, the 150 side over towards, Lehman High School or, back to Bunton. And I know that there is a couple of projects that are planned at the beginning of Creekside, down by 150. And then there's one right in the middle, right at the creek. And now we're looking at a number of rooftops in all sorts of different configurations, as well as some commercial now on what I'll call the north side, sort of the east side of the Plum Creek as well. I think what we're looking at is Creekside is about to be turned into a reasonably significant thoroughfare, especially in light of the fact that in a heavy rain, Lehman gets closed for as a low water crossing, but high water crossing is really what it is. So I would imagine that when that gets completed, that will actually carry a fair amount of traffic at some point in the not too distant future, if these projects, which are currently paper and ink, start to come out of the ground.
Okay,
Howard, you said the subdivision underneath it is coming. The one that's to the south is coming soon to us.
I can't say soon, but we have had some conversations as recently as late last fall with the owner and her development team, and it's the property there that's just to the east of that, or to the right of that dashed yellow line. It is a managed care facility for I think it's age restricted, if I don't miss my guess, but basically what it's going to be comprised of is a number of single family detached homes that will all be built on the same lot. And then on the left side of the lot, or closer that you get to that yellow dash line, there would be some additional care facilities that would be a higher level of care, managed care, and older folks facilities. So there would be some, basically what's going to function as multifamily attached there on the left side, and then some single family detached on the rest of it. So we had a zoning action related to that moved a couple of boundaries that allowed them to do their project, and that was as early as was that late last summer or sometime in the fall that was happening, that was going on. So that was accomplished, and I would imagine that they're going to come back to us with an expectation of, because their entitlements should be in place. I don't think they need anything else, so they're probably going to start bringing us construction drawings before too much longer of what their plan is to have those come out of the ground. Yeah, Will, you haven't seen anything from Sarah be submitted yet, have you? Or her team?
We've been reviewing the site plan, but they've stopped, and I think they're reassessing what type of units they want. Possibly looking at duplexes, maybe some triplexes. Just kind of depends. Maybe a mix. They're kind of reassessing right now. The R1C zoning district allows that, though. It doesn't really give a it doesn't require a certain type of whether it's a unit, whether it's multifamily, single family, duplex, triplex. You kind of have, it's kind of flexible that way.
Okay. Well, if that's all, staff will be in contact with Mr. Baker and his team and DR Horton moving forward, and probably expect to see a request in the future for some zoning reassignment related to this property, commensurate with the schedule that they had presented earlier. So if there's no other input, they'll probably have their marching orders for moving forward.
Yeah, I think our hope, Howard, too, is maybe we have a similar workshop like this with council as well, and kind of put everybody's feedback together in one response as we make any submittals, if that makes sense.
You're the second group that's asked me about that today, and I'll tell you the same thing. You're probably going to want to coordinate that with the city manager's office. Just send an email to the city manager, Scott Sellers, and let him know who you are, what you're thinking, what your plan is, and he can direct you.
Very well. We'll do it. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for hearing me out and listening to my boring presentation here and giving us some good feedback. And it's good to see everybody again.
not a problem. That was a great presentation. It wasn't boring at all.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5 for general discussion. Downtown Revitalization Project, direction from council. Mr. Kuhn.
Okay, so I hinted to you at our voting meeting in February that I would be bringing this forward to you at tonight's work session. I hope you were able to watch the council meeting last evening, or maybe caught some of the highlights today, or talked with your neighbors about it, about what you saw or didn't see. But there was some discussion, primarily brought forward by Councilman Ellison and Tobias. And they had talked about the plan, which has been published on the City of Kyle's planning webpage since nearly the end of 2019, when we received the plan from the Texas Downtown Association. So they made some recommendations for how we can get higher and better uses out of our downtown and make it more of a destination and get greater activity efficacy from our downtown. So they talked about it a little bit last night, wanting to make it more of a priority for themselves, and they want a lot of help from this board and commission, the P&Z. So I knew that there was an item on the council agenda as early as probably about 2 weeks ago, but I didn't know what the specifics would be. So you'll see that the backup material that's in the packet tonight is both very general and a little bit thin. I hedged my bets on what it would be that they would want us to talk about and what they would want us to develop. We found out last night that the direction was actually fairly specific and pretty narrow. What they want right now, first, from this group, is a reevaluation of the table of permitted uses located in the current city zoning ordinance, which is 53-1230 is our table of permitted uses. And they want a reevaluation of the uses of CBD1 and CBD2. And they want us to look at what's allowable in CBD1 and 2, specifically as it relates to whether those uses hinder or incentivize activity in our downtown. Basically, what is going on with our table of uses and how would it affect the ability to revitalize what's happening in our downtown area. So you'll notice one of the backup documents was a map that has a fictitious line, a made-up heavy boundary that goes around and shows, what exactly is downtown. That isn't a very all-encompassing, it's a very large line. And the discussion last night did not center on all the land contained inside that boundary. I believe that most of the discussion was centered on the park, City Square Park, right downtown, and a little bit more of the area as it moves away from that. A little bit of discussion was had on whether or not, the intersection of Wallace and Center Street should be the focus of this discussion. Whether or not, anything along Moore Street, maybe down at Meyer, if that's necessarily going to be our downtown. But in the end, that was not the focus of the charge from the council to the P&Z. Instead, it was an opportunity for us to look at the table of permitted uses and find out how that can help and whatever is helping do more of, and find out if it can hinder or somehow block the ability for downtown to be used in a higher and better rate, and stop that. Figure out how we can minimize those threats. So, knowing what you know about that expectation, I would like to hear back from you on initial thoughts. What do you believe it is about the downtown and the downtown as it relates to uses, creating more of an activity center for Kyle's downtown? Not all at once. Now I can't take notes that fast.
I did watch the meeting last night, and my take on what the council wants us to look at is to find those uses that are geared more towards walkability, to encourage people to come downtown and do their thing and spend money and do whatever. It would make people come to downtown. I heard a few people say, here, we should weed out negative uses. I don't know who said that. And we should reduce uses that don't bring walkability. In the end, some of them said it would prove to be more restrictive. Some of the uses, I guess, we would have to pull or look to remove if that type of business is not going to draw people to come to the downtown area. And I also heard them say that for the purposes of this, I guess, we were to look at just that area around City Square Park, that should be where we're looking.
I have a question. What's
ahead.
an example of a negative use? Is that something that would draw people or not encourage walking, like encourage more driving, or what would a negative use be?
So I think in the context of our downtown, there are some uses that won't necessarily draw people to the downtown, and I'll call one out. And I hate to be ugly, but I have to call one out. Automobile and truck sales. Automobile and truck sales are not the type of use that you would want in your downtown for a couple of different reasons. One, it's a very specialty niche purchase that you don't necessarily get a lot of people that are going to want to window shop at an automobile dealer. Two, they typically take up quite a bit of space. In the area where you could have a downtown auto dealer, you could probably you could easily build a structure that's going to have 6 to 10 different specialty retail shops on multiple floors, and even have residential on the upper floors and retail below. So there are some uses that don't necessarily lend themselves to the type of entertainment and activity that you get from simply being able to stroll a downtown. Conversely, the type of uses that everybody eventually will need, and I've been fought several times on this idea, although I saw it happen one time and it was fantastic. My favorite use for a downtown, absolutely hands down, number one favorite use for a downtown is the post office. I love
That's true.
small, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 square feet max post office. Maybe have about 200 PO boxes in there, because the post office is something that everybody is going to use. I myself go to the post office probably 3 or 4 times a month, and I see that there's always people there when I go to the post office. It's never empty. There's always a line. The post office is the type of primary use that will drive secondary uses. So if you say to yourself, well, I got to go to the post office, what else am I going to do during that trip? Well, if I time it right, I can go down there and get a cup of coffee and meet so-and-so and we can talk. Or I can go get some lunch. Or I can drop off or pick up whatever that good or service is at the store that's half a block down and away. But the thing about the post office is that it gets you downtown. There are other uses that are like that. It's the type of uses that get people to come downtown out of their car and walk around, because the activity is on the sidewalks. It's not in the cars. It's not in their seats. So think about the uses that are high turnover and likely to incentivize people to attend, even if they don't necessarily make a purchase, but at least it gets activity. Those are good, but also think about the antithesis of those types of businesses. Those would be the ones that we wouldn't necessarily want to see. I see Paul has his hand up.
Howard, I have a question. Can you tell us what's the difference between CBD 1 and 2? Which one is the one that's more restrictive?
Sure. Will you pull that back up? So CBD 1 is more restrictive in that it does not allow as many uses as CBD 2 does. CBD 2 has its own list of uses that are available, as well as everything that was in CBD. I think Michelle's talking to her cat. I'm not sure.
Okay, so then the area right around the square, as far as which ones would be good there versus other places, are we looking at CBD 1 or CBD 2? And the ones that are further off, closer to the library, I would assume that would be more restrictive. But if we're just looking at the square, it would be the less restrictive one. Is that
Will, do you have
correct?
that zoning map? Yeah, Will should have the zoning map up. And
Yay.
okay, so by and large, rule of thumb, rule of thumb is that the further east you move on Center Street, closer you get to Front Street and the train tracks, the less restrictive, the more permissive we get by having more CBD2. The
Okay.
further west you move on Center Street, away from the crossroads, and get into more of the residential area where there's more houses, the more restrictive, the less permissive we get, and we have more and more CBD1.
Okay, good. So if, based on what I heard from the council yesterday, it really seems like CBD2 is supposed to be our focus at the moment, because
I would say.
the council seems to more care about us focusing on the square area than on the more western part of what may or may not be considered downtown. I mean, am I correct?
On its face, I agree with that statement. I believe that they do have a focus, the epicenter of their expectation in their mind's eye. Downtown is the square. And then it gets a little more nebulous of what counts as downtown and what doesn't, the further you get away from that square. I believe that. But in any opportunity when you create an allowance or you remove an allowance for uses, there's going to be balance. So we're going to want to find out what are we adding to CBD2? Is that taking away from something else? So right now there is an equilibrium. I don't know if it's necessarily equality, but there is a balance. And when we start to move one, are we moving the pieces from the other? Which is why I think it's important that, because our downtown zoning is CBD 1 or 2. After that, you get into RS. I really don't believe that there's too many, RS is too permissive for our downtown. It's going to create too many uses that fall into Megan's question of things that aren't necessarily desirable. So I believe that you are onto something, that you are correct, that if our focus is the park, then most of the zoning that's around the park is CBD2.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, did you have
So
something?
it's, oh,
Yeah, I was listening last night, and maybe I'm reading between the lines. I think there were several council members that were really didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. A couple of them, but the ones I believe most of them want to. Sorry, here I'm a little out of it. I felt like focusing around the square was kind of more of a concession to keep some of the council members on board with what we were discussing. I feel like Councilman Ellis would really like us to look at the entire area if we could. But I think that we're going to meet with a lot of opposition if we try and do much beyond the square. That's kind of the way I understood it. Maybe I'm incorrect.
There's a lot of nuance to that. There's probably a lot of politics to that. I'm trying to look at this a little more clinically. I understand that any action we take, up to and including inaction, has a consequence to it. I believe that our comprehensive plan, the one that we're working under today, does have language in it that refers to our downtown and making sure that it gets the maintenance and the care that it needs to remain viable. I know that the city has put quite a bit of onus, at least portions of the city have put quite a bit of focus on the downtown, up to and including, inviting the Texas Downtown Association to do a walking study and an evaluation and put their best guess forward in a plan for us. So I think what we should do, even at this point, if it's academic, is follow the direction from the council as best as was given to us now, because I too walked away from the meeting last evening thinking there probably, I think I came up with 9 different parent concepts of different things you can look at in an area plan, up to and including walkability. So there's on highway transportation network, off highway transportation network, and parking. that was, two different things that I thought about right there. The built environment, as far as, building metrics, setbacks, heights, the mix of uses versus the Euclidean style of just having separate uses. There's a number of different things that come together. But in this instance, I think our marching orders were pretty narrow and pretty specific. So I'd like to see if we can't follow that, and let that other discussion happen amongst the folks who actually make the decision, because we're P&Z and we make a recommendation with the best data available, and let those folks use it as they may.
Well, Howard, we have to go over all of these uses and cull from it uses that we may see that really don't fit that walkability or that downtown feel. I'm just glancing at my copy here, and I could just rip a few off. One is an appliance store. I just don't see an appliance store in a downtown area. You're not going to go downtown to go shop for a washer and a dryer. It's just not going to happen. But with that said, shouldn't we just look at it ourselves and come back and compare and plan what we have? I mean, I don't know how to tackle it in this venue. In this, I mean, it would take us literally hours to go through all of this.
I agree, and I didn't want to belabor that point tonight. My expectation was, and I'm going to go into this a little bit later. Our next meeting is scheduled right now for March the 9th. I can explain why, but March the 9th is also going to be a work session. It will not be a voting meeting. March's voting meeting will be the fourth Tuesday, which is March the 23rd. So the very next meeting we will pick this up again. So my expectation was, you can work by yourself if you choose to, or you can probably split up into non-quorum groups of 2 or 3, and maybe take portions of the list. And if you have a change that you think should be made about a specific use, go ahead and highlight that, and then put a little note next to it that says, why it is that you would, what the change is and why. I don't think there's going to be a way for us to get around discussing the uses, almost individually. I don't know how we're going to be able to batch them, because, they are pretty specific unto themselves as you go through line by line. They all belong to the same category per se, specialty retail, but the difference between like a trophy store versus a formal gown and tuxedo type store versus an appliance store, all the same parent concept, very different, in the specific product that's vended. So Councilman Ellison is actually on the line. He's joining us this evening, and he has his hand raised. He says that he can make himself available if you have any questions about the assignment up to this point.
Can I have an idea, listening to kind of what we've heard today. I think that having gone through something similar to this before, one of the things that we tackled was essentially taking it as a user journey. Like, why are people going downtown? Like we talked about yesterday in the meeting, or I wasn't there. The council members talked about, walkability being a thing. Well, why are people coming downtown is the thing that we need to answer, if we're going to have like those use cases come out of it. Because I think going individually is great, but if there's not a package of like, what is someone going downtown doing? Are they going to a coffee shop? What are they going to do after the coffee shop? What do we want them to do after the coffee shop? Or if they're going to the post office, what do we want them to do go after the post office? Like, I think that's probably some of the best use of our time, is to like put together what a journey through going through Kyle's downtown and what we want people to achieve through that with our planning. That's just from going through it before. That's kind of what we did.
Okay, any other ideas? Priscilla?
Can we hear from Councilmember Ellison? I really would like a bit more just to understand it better, because I know certain council members said one thing and certain ones said other. So as we go through this, I want to kind of get a better idea. Should we be looking at both CBD 1 and CBD 2, make a recommendation, and then the council can do with that as I'd like? Or should we really, because certain council members were very specific on keep this to the square, only worry about CBD 2? If Councilmember Ellison could speak a bit more, just about clarify what our directive is, I think it'll really help us be able to accomplish more what they like from us.
Councilmember Ellison? Hello?
Good evening.
There you are.
Hi. Good to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity and the discussion. So I've been partially listening in. I was double booked on a meeting, but there were a few comments that made me want to get off that meeting and jump into to this one. So one thing, it was a tough discussion last night, and downtown is a tough topic in the city and on council, and it's been ever since I've been on it and long before I've been on it. So the directive was to look at central business districts 1 and 2. That is not the square. And I know a lot of folks want to just focus on the 4 sides of the square, because that's essentially what we're looking at, because the square is actually just a park, and we're already addressing that. As a city, we're putting a lot of money into our downtown square. We just got the 50% design development yesterday on that. It's going to be a great park. So when I hear my colleagues talk about the square, it is a bit frustrating, because you're just narrowing it to 4 sides, and that's not a downtown. That's not a downtown anywhere. Maybe in a city that's a very small portion of what we are. Maybe if you're not a home rule city in the state of Texas and you're under 5,000, maybe that would be your downtown. That is not a downtown. And I think that the struggle is when people hear downtown, they just think that it's businesses and that my home will become a business. That is not the case at all. We look at some great communities across our state, and I know people get frustrated when I throw out other cities and they say we're not that. That's not the point of bringing up other cities. The point is to say, look, this is an example of it, and how residential and commercial need to be near each other, and it works, and it works well. And so this is something we've been talking about for a number of years. So the directive is to look at those districts, central business districts 1 and 2. They cover a large area. We want you all to look at all the permitted uses in those districts, which is not the square. It's CBD 1 and 2, and come up with recommendations on any removals from that list or any additions to that list. And I emphasize both of those equally, because there certainly can be some additions to that. So, I get the talk of the political atmosphere and people wanting to keep it to the square and whatnot. It seems a bit contradictory, if I'm just going to be quite honest, when I hear that and hear people say, let it happen naturally. Well, even when it does happen naturally, it gets rejected, and we don't follow the comprehensive plan. And so that is a challenge. And, even last night it was talked about, well, the council's doing a great job of doing this. I won't be on the council forever, and my colleagues won't be on the council forever. That's why plans are important. That's why plans exist, because they will outlive the temporary seats that we all hold, whether you're elected or appointed. And so, so that's the challenge. But what I think the major focus for you all will be, and this is a weighty thing that we're asking you all to do. It is going to take some time. And you notice we didn't give y'all a time parameter either. If you wanted to, obviously I wouldn't like for y'all to take all year with it. But we have long meetings sometimes. P&Z is a very admirable and capable body. I think y'all can put it together and put in some great work. And I think that was the council's idea and hope behind that. At least Councilmember Tobias and I, who sponsored this item and brought it forward to get the blessing of the rest of the council. We did talk about as well charrettes and community involvement and getting people involved in any way that y'all see that could happen. I didn't want to, and me and Councilmember Tobias talked about this. We didn't want to pigeonhole y'all too much. We wanted to give you all some flexibility, even flexibility to, if you're going through this process and brainstorming it and you see that you need more help or more resources to actually bring a better product of recommendation to the council, that you all would not be afraid to ask for it. And I hope y'all understand what that means. So I think y'all are very capable to do this, and it will be challenging, and you all will have to deal with the public, and that's just the nature of it. You all were appointed because you all had a desire to be involved in this community, in this city, and that includes being involved with the community and having a conversation with them and getting feedback. And there will be people that will push back against it. There will be people that will support it. There will be people from our downtown that will come. There will be people from outside of our downtown that will come. There will be business professionals that would come. I've talked about it before for some of you all that might not have been around in 2019 when we had this discussion. We had a number of different town halls, and the big one we had with the city was nearly 3 hours on a Saturday morning. We had 70, 80 people here, and they were from all over our city. And so downtown means a lot to everybody in the city. And certainly we have empathy, and we want the input and feedback and sensitivity towards those that have lived in our downtown for many years, decades. So that they certainly need to be heard, and we want to give them their chance to be heard and give their input. But going back to that town hall, you listen to the feedback that we were giving. I will say what I heard from it. Certainly, it's available to watch yourselves. People didn't want bars; they didn't want more bars, and how that creates noise. Well, we have noise ordinance in the city that help prevent that. People didn't want. They were frustrated with drunk drivers running stop signs and all these different things. We have law enforcement to tackle that. So those aren't issues. Those sometimes can be issues of compassion and fear of what could happen, but that is also not the goal of what we're trying to take place. This city went from 5,300 people in 2000, and I'm kind of talking to you, Mr. James, that has recently moved here. 5,300 people 20 years ago to now we're at 56,000 people, and our median age also drastically decreased. So it's a lot of younger families that are moving here. So our populace is made up of young people, young families. I think our median age has ticked up a little bit since I've last been talking about it. I think it's maybe up to 32 now, but still a relatively young city that's lower than the average in the state of Texas. Median income, household income is higher than the average in the state of Texas. So that's what we're looking at, but not to neglect or forget about the other part of our population that didn't cause the growth. So it is a delicate balance. And certainly I hope that you all are up to task. I feel you all are up to task, and to Councilmember Tobias and I have both committed, Councilmember Flores Kell as well. That would be the max we could have, committed to helping y'all in any type of way, whether that's helping coordinate the charrettes, helping work through this as well. We are happy to jump in this with you all and however you all see fit that we could help. But I'm also happy to answer any specific or direct questions about that. But I just wanted to kind of give a little different insight about that, and that we're not focusing on the square. We're focusing, downtown is still something of a debate of where that parameter is. Right. And I know some people get frustrated about that, but that's what I was bringing up earlier. Fredericksburg, if anybody's been there, You've got the main street where you've got all the businesses and the shops, and there's lots of hubbub, and that is a great revenue source for that city. But just one block behind that, it's residential on both sides. And that's exactly how our downtown is made up as well, except that there's been a lot of pushback that if you make my area downtown, that's going to make you're making my property commercial. That is not the case. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding and fear in our community, and that is also the part of this, is that we need to help educate our community about what these names and these titles mean. People hear CBD1 and CBD2, and they get scared in many ways because they don't understand what that means. But if digging deeper into what these uses are and how they can be beneficial to our downtown area as a hub that is an attraction for connectivity, walkability, and things like that is the desire.
So you want us to look at both CBD1 and CBD2, make revisions as we see fit, and use the governing source that we're looking for uses that will draw people into downtown, no matter where downtown is. That shouldn't really enter into our minds. We just think of downtown and what would draw citizens, visitors into a downtown area. What businesses will make that happen? That's what you want us to do. Am I right?
So largely, so the thing is, and I regret this as well, that we didn't get backup material with a map showing the CBD1 and CBD2 for my colleagues to all see and understand that and digest that and see. If anything, that's the parameter right now. So we can throw down, that's why downtown wasn't even in the language of the agenda item. It's CBD1 and CBD2. So
okay.
if we look at those districts, and there's a clear line of what those districts are from our comp plan that has been the case since 2010, that apparently nobody wants to touch and improve. But anyway, that is the area we're looking at. And that's why it specifically was not downtown. It's the central business districts of 1 and 2 and looking at those specific uses on that.
Okay. That's clear.
There we go.
Me.
Perfect. Exactly.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. That really does help. And just looking back at what was the actual item yesterday, it was to direct Planning and Zoning Commission to revise the CBD1 and CBD2 zoning codes. And that motion, I believe, passed 6-1. So I think that helps clarify really what we should be doing here. And definitely want to get, community feedback and things. I'm not quite sure which one comes first. If we should come up with our own thoughts and bring it to our next workshop and then get community feedback on what our changes would be, or if we should get community feedback first and then come back with suggestions from there. I'm not sure which one comes first, but either way, I think community feedback is going to be very important going forward on this.
I think if we do it first, it just gives us a better feel for what those uses are. Then we truly know what they are. Even before we go to the public and say to them, these are the changes we want to make. It gives me the opportunity to really sit, look at this, make a decision on what items we may want to pull, add, whatever. We all come together and talk about that and open it up to the public. It gives me a better handle on how to respond to the public and help them understand the process and what everything means. If I understand it better, then I can explain it to them better. That's just for me. I feel that gives me a leg up to help them out.
Paul has his hand up.
Paul. Go, Paul.
Priscilla's been wanting to talk here for a minute too.
Go ahead. You go ahead first.
I just kind of agree with Michelle. we kind of have to understand it ourselves before we can really get everyone else involved, because we need to have a clear picture in our head of what things are looking like in order to allow a conversation to, I think, be more effective. Because I always liken that to like some of the stuff they've done for the high school. The communications guy over there, Tim Savoy, guy does a really good job of guiding the discussion in a bounded way, so that it's very productive, and not that it prevents points of view from coming out, but making sure that the discussions don't end up kind of in rabbit holes, I guess. And I think to be able to do that, we've got to be able to articulate ourselves kind of what we're looking at here first. So I agree with Michelle.
Priscilla, I'm sorry I didn't get to you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And thank you so much, Dex, for coming on and explaining a little bit more. But I also agree with Michelle. I think we need to do and understand a little bit more, because if you go to the public, you are going to try to explain to them. They're not going to understand until we understand ourselves a little bit more. Another thing I wanted to go into, I understand we need to do this for our downtown. First of all, I don't go downtown very much. I guess, to tell you the truth, and I'm going to be very honest, it needs a makeover. It really does. There's a lot of things that I go through. I mean, starting from I-35, going over the pass, going through CVS. CVS has been there. I remember when I think it was a Mexican restaurant that was there first before CVS. Ever since, like, AutoZone, they're not keeping up it beautified. I mean, and our city is looking kind of rough. I just don't understand where our city is at to keep our, I guess, our retail shops beautified, our greenery, our trees around the retail shops to be beautified. They're not. They're really ugly. For you to have visitors come to our city, I mean, I would just turn around. I really would. There's just a lot that needs to be done. That's just not all. I mean, I see yield signs, stop signs that are just halfway down. This is going through downtown. It really is not a very pretty sight. There needs to be a lot of things that needs to change, just not the square. Just like, for instance, you come in across the city hall, we have the restaurant that is now for sale. Yeah, do we need another restaurant there? We don't know. That's the thing that maybe P&Z can maybe recommend. Maybe something else needs to come there for more visitors to come in and also make money for our city. I just get a little frustrated seeing downtown the way it is. And I don't want to point fingers, but there's a lot of restaurants or little retail shops downtown right now that I think don't need to be there, just because they make our downtown not pretty at all. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for your 2 cents.
Sure.
It's an important 2 cents.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Michelle?
Yes, Paul.
I'll add some more. I walk downtown quite a bit from hometown Kyle. Try and go at least three times a week. Of course, the last few weeks been a little bit rough. Okay, but I hear some of what Priscilla's saying, and that's kind of, I feel like that's probably from the automobile path view of things, but from a pedestrian standpoint, the sidewalks are terrible. You get whacked by trees as you're walking by, right? If we want a walkable downtown, we got to have some kind of focus on the infrastructure that gets you there. And I realize that's not the purpose of all this here, but I think it's important to kind of be cognizant of that, because I don't know what the mindset of the person who's going downtown. What are we looking at? Are we looking at people that are walking downtown? Because if you look at some of the subdivisions that are popping up around here, I mean, hometown Kyle might be a little bit far for some to walk down there. So that's just the way I am, I guess, right? But there's things closer than that. There's a lot of walkable neighborhoods within neighborhoods with what I would call a walkable distance to downtown, and getting those people to feel comfortable walking down there, I feel like is kind of one of the ways we ought to approach this. And I think, Mr. Ellison, I think part of the problem is going to be, we can talk about zoning categories and making it more restrictive, less restrictive. There's just some basic infrastructure, though, that's just not conducive in general. And I don't know if I have a big point here or not, but I feel like, for me, that's my downtown. I feel ownership of it. If I can walk to it, it's mine, right? And I have an opinion, and I would like it to look a different way than it does, for sure. But I don't think it's all zoning related, if that helps.
You brought up my name, so I feel like that was a question for me to respond. I'm not on this body, so I have to be asked of a question. But I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with the perspectives that both of you have shared and others have shared. And this is multifaceted. When I went down a laundry list of different things that we've done, things that we have yet to do, and still needs to happen. And certainly improved infrastructure, sidewalks, things like that are a part of that. How do we get the money to do that? Particularly in an area that has been a lot of resistance to improvement and development. There's a reason why we always say development to help pay for itself. And if we can get development coming in there, that can help us pay for that infrastructure that we're talking about. But then also, there are things that we are putting money. That park, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to what we're doing with the park. And then on 104 South Burleson, these are the things that we're talking about this. And we're already talking about the infrastructure that we need to do as we are creating these better places. Now that we got the public safety center passed, the next goal is where the old post office, where the PD is at, on the corner there at Burleson and Center, on that north, I guess it'd be northwest corner there as well. So, but improving and continue to do those things as well. So everything that you all are saying is all a part of it. This is a very narrow portion of it. So this is just the beginning as well. My anticipation and my conversations with Councilmember Tobias is that there will be other things that we will be delegating to all to help us with. So it's all just different parts coming together to make it work. We're not expecting that these code improvements and permitted use improvements to be the fix for everything. That is not the expectation. It's just one part of it that we want y'all's help with it. And being the planning and zoning body, we felt y'all were the most capable to do this part.
Okay, now what? Some direction there, Mr. Coates? What should we do?
My expectation again was for you all to do this either individually or in small groups and go through and evaluate what you think. And if you're able to produce your report by Thursday, March the 4th, we can put that as backup material in the packet and share it with all of you that way. And then we can discuss it on the 9th. I don't know what form that discussion is going to take right now, but you've heard Councilman Ellison, and you've heard the expectation of what the review should entail and what product you're looking for. So really, there's not that much more to it right now, other than the education on your own part by going through 53, I forgot, 1230, I think. Is that right? We'll put it in the chat for all of us if you want to find where the link is there.
I got mine.
53 1230. So you might want to grab that and bookmark it so you can find it.
12:30. Yeah.
this is how it starts. I think we've had some good discussion tonight because, again, I had the same thoughts myself. Sidewalks and parking and the number of rooftops that are nearby and the uses. And I know that there's a habit. I've worked in local government now for almost 20 years, and there's a habit where people say don't do something because there is a possibility for a negative effect of doing that thing. And sometimes that thing that's negative really is just a function of enforcement of something that's already present. So when someone says, don't do this because it's noisy, Councilman Ellison touched on that. Well, we have a noise ordinance. So that's not a reason to stop something from happening simply because there is an opportunity for something to not go according to plan. There is enforcement in place for that. There's that line of thinking is the same way of saying, well, we shouldn't sell automobiles because drunk driving is a thing. Well, drunk driving is against the law and there's enforcement for that. That shouldn't stop me from buying an automobile because I'm not going to get drunk and use it. So I don't want anybody to be able to stymie progress based upon every single thing that might go wrong. I like to see progress move forward based upon all the things that might go right. And that's exactly what you're being asked to discover tonight. We need insight. We need insight from a number of disparate, different, persons and backgrounds. And you're all familiar with downtowns, especially Kyle's downtown, but other downtowns, and think for yourself. Priscilla touched on it. She said, I don't go downtown, and she can voice why. And that's where it starts. Once you can voice why something doesn't happen, that's usually the starting point for change, and usually the starting point for finding how to improve that. And when you can improve it for yourself, you can be certain that you can improve it for others that are similar to you. So I think right now, I don't want to belabor this anymore. I would rather folks just go out, read about it, educate yourself to the point where you can ask competent questions. Get together in small groups, tackle this together. We've got a couple of weekends between now and then. Get your information to me and or Debbie and or Will about what you found. Annotate what you need people to know, and we'll get back in touch with you. Like I said, on our next meeting, which will be, I think I said the 9th. Yeah. So we'll get your information hopefully by Thursday the 4th, and we'll get together on the night of Tuesday the 9th.
Okay, is everybody clear on that?
How are we going to get you our information? Just type it up and send it to you, or are we doing like a Google Doc together or something?
I would think right now we will not do the Google Doc. I would think right now to start, I would rather see you all produce something for yourselves, and then you can just email it right to myself and Debbie and Will, and we'll turn that around, put it together, and put it in the packet for the next meeting. Then moving forward, as we coalesce a direction that is the recommendation of P&Z, we'll start to put that all together in a single draft, which would then go forward for public input. That's my expectation.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close this topic and move on. 5D, future land use map progress update.
This will sadly be short. Yeah, and I got nobody to blame but myself. Let's start with good news, because good news makes me happy. We have had a vacancy in the building department since Halloween. Our longtime building official, Mario Perez, retired from city service Halloween, October 31st of last year. We have a finalist candidate, I believe now, who is going to be able to help us out as a building official and take that responsibility from me, so I don't need to be the interim building official anymore. In any other context, I'd be having the time of my life right now. But I have some other stuff that I really wanted to get done. And unfortunately, trying to do both, I've done a terrible job for myself anyway. So the future land use map progress update is that I hope that I can pick it up again, probably beginning in March. I just have a couple of edits that I want to make. I also want to run them past Will, the city planner. Two of us get together. I need to get with the communications department and see what I can do about finding out about what we're going to do for getting our changes, all the changes, the global changes, in front of the public, so that we can get some feedback from them, other than the public hearing that we will also have as we go to ratify the changes as they move forward.
Yeah.
So, today is the 24th of February. I'm going to expect that is going to be in front of people in April. Really, I think it'll take the better part of March to probably be able to pick this up and get this started again. And there are a host of reasons that I hate that. And I'll take some privilege and just go ahead and move right into 5E. The future land use map amendment is a usual and customary process in other jurisdictions where I've worked, although I don't believe we've ever done one in Kyle since I've been here. It'll be 6 years in May, and I don't think we've ever done a future land use map amendment. But the process, for lack of a better term, really follows the standard process of a rezoning. It is an individual parcel, or on occasion an individual block. It's a very narrow, very specific question brought forward by an applicant seeking to amend the future land use map for the purpose of them wanting to assign some sort of zoning entitlement going forward. For example, let's say somebody wanted to build a multifamily, an apartment complex somewhere, and the future land use map has a certain district in it, and there's no provisions in it for multifamily. But it's on a border, and there's an opportunity for a neighboring district to allow it, and they would like to see if the border could be shifted to encompass their parcel, thereby making the question even possible. That is the type of thing that we haven't done before, but I think I would like to undertake that. Last year, at the end of the year, we had two separate properties in the city. One is at the intersection of 150 and 21, so way down in the southeast of the city. The other is essentially at the southwest corner of Dacey and Beebe, just a little bit down off of that intersection. Both of them have an expectation that they need to assign a zoning entitlement so that they can develop the property commensurate with plans that they have. Neither one of those right now is able to move forward because our future land use map doesn't place them in a district that's appropriate for the zoning they want. At the time they came forward, serendipity, we said, oh, hey, we're undertaking a global map amendment right now. We can just do that ourselves, spare you the necessity of going through that process yourself. And by the time we're done, which I thought would have been at the end of last year, at the end of 2020, I said, by the time you're done, you'll be able to come in for your zoning entitlements in the beginning of 2021. Well, we've had contact from both of them in the beginning of 2021, and they said, hey, what's going on with that? And through no fault of their own, through 100% fault of my own, I've had to suspend that process while I attend to some other things that go on in the daylight hours and the evening hours, and really haven't been able to give that the attention and be able to move that forward. So what I'd like to do is, I guess, for lack of a better term, take your temperature and find out if you would be willing to look at some specific parcel changes to the future land use map outside of the global change that we're making in the project that started last September, and bring that forward to you in the next couple of weeks, maybe as early as probably the April voting meeting, I think. So I maybe I explained that poorly. I'm not sure. I'm explaining it like a person who already knows what it is. So I might be doing a poor job of explaining it to people who have no idea what I'm talking about. So please ask me questions, slap me around if you have to. But if you need better direction than that, by all means, reach out to me. But just wondering if it would be worth the idea, because otherwise I think we're going to be delaying these private sector clients probably till the spring. At the very least, it's going to be later than April or May at this point, I think, before the process finishes. So thoughts, ideas?
Anyone? I think I understand what you're asking. You're asking if we will be open to doing an amendment just for a short parcel of land use so that the developer can go in and do their thing. They can ask for the zoning and
Yes.
do their thing.
When you ask for a zoning entitlement, it heavily relies on the expectations
land
of
use.
the future land use map, the
Mhm.
character area, and the direction that the comprehensive plan sets out for us.
Right.
These parcels, unique as they are both not mentioned on the map. Period. So they're technically using standard operating procedure of planning. They can't ask the question. There's no direction we can lawfully give them, at least from the standpoint of making a recommendation for zoning. However, we can back up our decision with the direction given to us by the plan and the map. But before we do that, we have to create a designation on the map.
Okay.
The global plan that we're undertaking now, the larger project that's been stalled, was meant to encompass the new areas of ETJ that made themselves apparent
Right.
when our population crested 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
That plan would have taken care of both of these clients, and they wouldn't have to bring this forward on their own. But because that's been stalled and we don't want to stall them any longer, we can allow them to come forward. It creates a little more work for us, a little bit. But like I said, the process is going to follow essentially the same process as a zoning. So it's, 45 minutes per client per meeting.
It sounds fine to me.
Howard, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So just trying to understand it better. Let's just say hypothetically, we weren't doing the global changes, just like if it was last year this time and they wanted to do this.
Mhm.
Is this the process they would follow? They would
Yes.
come and ask for the map amendment?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, then yeah,
Cool.
it seems perfectly fine to,
Okay.
at least for me, to do it that way now.
Yeah.
If we have to do it before the whole one can be done.
Just I like to know the answer before I ask questions, so I don't show up to the meeting and you look at me saying, what is this and why are you putting this in front of me? So I wanted to make sure that you were okay with it. As a planner, I'm obviously I'm very fine with it. It is definitely something that is usual and customary in the business. I know that it's new to you guys because I don't think it's been done here in Kyle before, but just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. No surprises.
Okay. Okay. Our next item is scheduling update for March meetings.
That's right. That's right. Really, it's my staff report, but so I've hinted at it earlier. Typically, what we've been doing is the first meeting that we meet, second Tuesday of the month, first meeting, is a regular voting meeting. That's where plats and zonings and all that fun stuff. If required, the second meeting, which is the fourth Tuesday, are work sessions. You might have noticed it was kind of chilly last week. There was stuff going on. Long story short, the power outages and some of the other logistical challenges also affected the newspaper and the ability for the newspaper to timely publish our public notices. State law is what it is, so we're not actually allowed to hold a hearing until the first day after 15 days of a newspaper notice being posted. So our deadlines are pretty tight. We try and condense our schedule as much as we can. We don't have a lot of wiggle room if we miss a deadline. So we had to re-advertise a couple of the cases that were going to come before you at the regular March voting meeting. So what we've done is re-advertise those and have rescheduled them for March the 23rd. So that is the fourth Tuesday in March. So we're just going to flip the two meetings. rather than having a work session at the second meeting of the month, it's going to be the first meeting of the month. And our regular voting meeting will be the last meeting of the month. Usually we do this when I go on vacation. I'll leave after the second council meeting, and I'll be back sometime before the next voting meeting. But in this case, it's actually fortuitous for us because it allows us to have 2 meetings in a row where we get to work on this downtown plan. So it came to us on the 23rd. Tonight is the 24th. And we will pick it up 2 weeks from yesterday. Looks like 1 week. 2 weeks from yesterday. So we'll have a work session on Tuesday the 9th at 6:30. And right now, the big item related to that is will be the downtown plan, and then we'll have our voting meeting on the 23rd. So that's that. 1 of 3. 2 of 3. I received an advertisement today for a training class put on by a law firm here in Central Texas, and it's the fundamentals of land use training. Many of us have taken this class before. Every time I get an advertisement for it, I make it available to both my staff and any new or veteran commission members. I'm putting it in front of you now. Would any of you like to attend? Now, recall, this is introduction to land use. So it is, it's pretty elementary. Some of you have taken it before. You can remember they talk about, what is a zoning? How does state law affect zoning?
Yeah.
What is the difference between Euclidean and form-based and incentive zoning and things like that? I think Mr. James would get a lot from it, just being honest, because I've been a land use practitioner. This is my 4th state, and it's different every time you go somewhere. So the first time I went to this was at a hotel up by Ben White at 35. And it was the better part of, I think, a day or 2 afternoons or something like that. I really liked it. It was a lot of information. They do give you some stuff to go home with. So if you're interested in attending that, I can forward the information to you. But we can also cover that with the city's training budget. I'm certain in my heart it'll be a virtual meeting. I don't expect that it would be in person. So you should be able to log in from wherever you are and attend. But I wanted to put it in front of you and, try and get a show of hands who would be interested in sitting through that for what I'm going to guess is the better part of at least an afternoon, if not all day.
I'm interested.
Great. I forwarded this to the city manager. So I know that there's interest from at least one council person. So Megan, Alex, Brandon.
Is it the Borges law
I'll
firm?
do it.
It is. Yes, Paul.
Okay. I mean, I'd do it again. That was an excellent one.
I'll do it.
And when is it? Do you know what the date is?
1 second. Let me see if I can. I just got it. I think I just got it maybe yesterday. I guess I could search. Land use fundamentals. Okay, hello. Something went wrong. Of course it did.
Sorry.
Right? Debbie knows. Debbie knows my relationship with this Microsoft computer. Debbie understands exactly. Oh, shit. Ha! Thursday, March the 4th.
March the 4th?
That is
We're
correct.
so busy.
Oh, what time, March the 4th?
Thursday, March the 4th. It begins at the enter into meeting and welcome is from 8:30 to 9. And then the meeting is from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So 9 to noon.
I'm out.
All morning, Thursday, March the 4th.
I can't do it like March the 4th, but if it's
I can't do
full
it.
and recorded, would that be a possibility or?
It says it's a go-to meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if it has the ability to watch it at your leisure. I don't think it's pre-recorded. The last one of these that I went to from Borges was actually, it was a live seminar. So that being said, how many people are still interested in knowing that it's Thursday, March the 4th? Mr. James, Mr. Guerra. Wow, down to 2. All right, that's cool. What I would tell you is take great notes,
Mhm.
and we will have a pop quiz at the work session March the 9th. And you can tell us all the great things that you've learned about comp plans, plats, zoning, building codes, signs, planning and zoning, code enforcement, zoning board of adjustment.
There you go.
So, so Mr. Guerra and Mr. James, I'm going to write that down because I will forget it about 12 minutes after this meeting's over. All right. Lastly, oh no, did Carrie leave? Carrie dropped off.
It's being recorded there, right?
It is, but so we were contacted by a private sector engineer earlier this week, and she had some information for us related to some of the transportation planning going on at the county level, and potentially how that could have played into our future land use map amendment. So I wrote her back yesterday and I said, hey, I would love it if you would jump in and talk to my P&Z and tell them yourself what you're thinking, because I love public participation, especially from, the private sector. So she was the big finish. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll see if I can't get her to come back on the 9th and talk with us. I hope I didn't waste her time. I feel terrible if she thought that I wasn't planning on having her talk.
She didn't know she was the big finish.
No. It's been a day. I did get in contact with her last night. I told her to join the meeting and I said, please interact with the group. I don't know how excited she was to interact with the group, but I said, hey man, jump in. I would love for you to talk with them and, create a dialogue. It's a good time. So I'll have to email her back later and say, hey, what's up? So, all right. Well, then that's all I had.
That's it.
For this meeting.
Okay, before we finish, I would like to formally welcome Brandon to our group here. He
Yeah,
came on and we didn't get to make a big hubbub because we're not up in City Hall. I just wanted to say welcome. And
Brandon, talk a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the folks that are here.
Hi, my name is Brandon James. I did not expect a big introduction. I'm joining you all from, I had about 7.5 years of experience on what's essentially a planning and zoning for City of Wichita, Kansas, where I'm from. We basically split our districts up into different planning districts. Each district about 70,000, so about the size of Kyle, but a very different vibe to that. But yeah, I moved to Texas about 3 years ago now, and I've lived in Kyle for almost 2 years, and I'm excited to be a part of this group. And if you have any questions, I guess I'm kind of shy at this point, but please let me know. I'll answer.
Did the cold surprise you?
I'm still undefeated against the snow.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Yes,
Oh.
we're happy to have you.
Paul, you were not able to attend on March the 4th. Is that correct?
I might be able to.
Let me know soon because we're probably going to have to register for this. It's probably going to be by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay.
So if you could email me and let me know.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is adjournment. Let me hear it. Looking for a motion. Looking for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Oh.
Yeah, right, that's it. Come on. Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We're out of here. That's it. We're done. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
stopping by.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it. We'll see you on the 9th.